Alright, boys and girls, students of 2D animation, you're back here with me. I don't have a camera, so I hope this recording of my voice with the screen will do. Let's have a look at the animation. So here we have a bouncing ball, squashy and stretchy type of bouncing ball that goes up and down. This is our rough animation. As you can see, starting from the first drawing, we have a ball who anticipates down and goes up, shoots up in the air, eases into the standard looking ball like we had in the first drawing, squashes into itself and overshoots that movement a bit up, and starts to come back down to the normal shape, starts to stretch and goes in a big stretch before it slams on the floor, squashes a bit more and starts to stretch up, goes back to the normal shape, stretches down, squash and goes back to normal shape. This is a rough that's in general should give us a good animation if we were to block it out. Alright, to those of you who did not attend, that file can be found on our Discord channel here. It's that file, export snsbb.fla. I am using Animate here. Animate apparently still saves the files as .fla. If I Ctrl Shift S and file save as, it says .fla. It's still an Animate document even though it's FLA, flash file. So no problem. See, I can open it up just fine from Flash, and if you want to use Animate to open it up, no problem at all. Except when we go backward compatibility, I haven't tried that out, so we'll see how that goes later in a bit. So let's zoom in, press Z and zoom in a bit. We need our library because inside of the library you'll find that we already have a symbol called new ball, so we're going to use this. Although before we do that, let's just create a new layer. So we have a new layer, double click that, and let's name this our blocking. Here we'll put our symbol onto this layer and we're going to block it out. Before we do that, let's just lock the rough animation so that we don't accidentally select it. Drag our symbol onto the stage like so, and we have that. Of course, the way I rough it is not a perfect circle, but you know, I know what I was doing, so I regard this as the standard looking circle, and it should be your standard looking circle. Do not do something like, you know, start to squash it just so that you really follow it. It means that if you in fact do that, you don't really understand why you're roughing it. So don't do this. We don't start with a squash, so don't just copy the rough without even thinking. I know some of you did that, so don't do that. So let's just undo that. You want your standard ball. It should look like that. That's the start of our animation. Yeah, let's just move it up a bit so that it really sits on that floor there. Actually, why don't we just do that? Alright, cool. That looks good. Alright, so that's the start of our animation. Alright, let's start. So we're starting here. Also, before I do that, you do notice something. Because the way this symbol has been created, if I go in, you'll notice that my pivot or my origin is down here at the bottom. So we're gonna exit that and click scene here, go outside of the symbol. You'll see that at the moment, if I hit Q so that I can transform it like so, everything pivots from the center, which isn't what I want. I want it to pivot here down to the bottom. How do you make that pivot jump to whatever pivot that you set in the symbol? To do that, it's quite simple. You hold Control and click on that circle and it'll jump there, and then that way If you were to scale it, it'll scale from the bottom. If you were to rotate it, it'll rotate from the bottom. Yeah, pretty basic. Alright, cool. So we got that out of the way. Let's start blocking. Alright, so I'm gonna go to this frame. It's going to start to squash. Hit F6. We're going to select the ball, hit Q, and squash it down. Cool. And now I'm gonna squash, cause we gotta keep volume. It's not just squashing it down without maintaining the volume. So I'm gonna hold alternate, pull it out, and hold shift and let go of alternate so that it pulls out the other way, like so. And you gotta give it a feel. You know what you do is you look at this drawing and you look at the previous drawing, see whether that's the right volume. I mean, if you think you went too far, just you know, lessen it a bit. You don't have to really follow the drawing. You gotta look at what you're doing with the ball, see whether you're actually giving it the right squash according to its volume, and that seems about okay. Yeah. All right, let's move on. I'm just gonna do a simple blocking first, and then we'll see how that goes in one pass. So here it's going to squash, going to stretch up, so it's gonna shoot up from that squash position. I'm gonna show you something that we do a lot. You can actually bring back the ball to its original state by saying modify, transform, remove transform, and it goes back to that original state. And then we'll just make it go up. It's going to stretch out. Again, you want to keep with the volume, hold alternate, bring it in, hold shift, let go of alternate, and it will scale that way. Sweet. That seems okay. Does it seem okay? Alright, another thing, another shortcut. I'm using Animate, yeah? It's not Flash. In Animate, it's a bit clever the way you can actually jump from one keyframe to the next. You see that you can actually go frame by pressing dot and comma, isn't it? But how do you go from one key drawing to the next key drawing? That's a bit tricky in Flash. You need to actually have a different script. But in my case, here in Animate, we have a shortcut for that. It's actually alternate comma and alternate dot. So you see that I can jump from one key drawing to the next. Just like how you would do your flip, how you will, okay, let me just Google it for you. What's it called? Traditional cell light box. You know how traditional animators back in the day, if they were animating, they'll use something like this, a light box with a peg, and they flip their drawings from one to the next, just to see how that keyframe transitions to the other. So what you're doing essentially when you're pressing alternate comma and alternate dot is you're jumping from one drawing to the next just to see whether that animates properly or not. Yeah? Alright, cool. Let's move on, shall we? That seems like too much, so I'm gonna lessen it a bit. I'll probably squash it in a bit as well. Alright, let's see. Yeah, seems okay, maybe. Alright, moving on. Goes up here. Okay, here I'm gonna do something a bit clever. We know that it's gonna go from here and come back to that normal state. So why don't I just create a keyframe here, press F6, select that, go modify. We have a shortcut for this actually, it's Ctrl-Shift-Z. Get it back to normal state, bring it up about that high maybe. And then what we do is something clever, which is create classic twin. Why do I do that? Well, for a reason. I'm trying to get this drawing or that kind of shape. So I could say I want, yeah, that looks close to that drawing. So what I'll do is I'll F6 here, right? So I get that drawing, and then I'll switch off, remove the classic twin, so we don't have it anymore, but we have the drawing, and we know that drawing should sit here, right? So we came from here and it should sit here, so we take that drawing and bring it closer to there, so it goes from here and there. Okay, we gotta fix the position, move it up, So it goes from here to here and there. So what I'm trying to say is, in it squashes in 2 frames, it immediately goes up. That means that it shoots up real fast to this position before gradually in 4 frames come to that position. And from here, I want it to actually squash into itself. So F6 here, we're gonna block out this drawing next, bring it up a bit. We're gonna squash it like that, and alternate, hold shift, let go of alternate, and we'll say like that maybe. So it goes like that and that, maybe a bit more. Could use a bit more movement. Alright, cool, squashing into itself, and then goes back to the normal pose. So what I'll do is I'll just copy that drawing, copy frame. I select that, right mouse button, copy frame again. I go here, right mouse button, and I'll paste that frame in. So we get essentially the same drawing. So it goes up here and comes back there. Cool. And then the next part is going to stretch down. So I'm going to do something clever again. It's going to stretch down here. So why don't I just create F6 there? I already have this drawing, but that's fine. I'll just manually do it. Pull it up about there. Alternate, pull it in. Hold shift, let go of alternate. About that, let's have a look. Yeah, it seems like the right kind of shape. We want this drawing, don't forget that drawing. So I'll motion tween that, classic tween that, don't use motion tween. So it looks like that. The drawing that I want, I think, looks like that maybe. Let's see which drawing should be. Yeah, I'll say this one. Hold on. Maybe that's too much. Let's see. Yeah, that's too much. I'll use this drawing. So F6 there. So I want to use that drawing. So I'll select all this, right mouse button, remove the classic tween, and this drawing should sit on this. So I'll pull it so that it sits on frame 32. So what we get is that. Okay, I gotta fix the position. So it should be here. Alright, so it goes from there to there, and it's gonna do that. Sweet. Alright, and then we're gonna have that slam. If you're lazy, you can always use the previous drawing. So we're gonna copy that, paste it in. Although the first squash is that much, so you can, if you want to say that it goes up, and then the second squash you can actually make it a bit more how to say, more squashy, yeah. Or we can also say maybe the first one can be a bit less. So I'm gonna lessen this a bit, because it's only starting to jump. So we'll just lessen it a bit compared to that one. So it's starting to jump, so it's not gonna squash too much. Alright, cool. So it's gonna do that, and then we're gonna squash it even more. F6 there, and we'll just bring it down a bit more. I'm feeling that there's a snap here. I'm talking about the when I try to pull it down, it feels like it's snapping to things a lot. So you can actually switch it off by going to snap. Make sure you switch off this. If you have this check, that check, and all that, means that snapping is on. So I like to just switch it off, so that way I can freely scale things without any interference. Alright, let's have a look. Alright, seems okay. So squash a bit more. You know why? Okay, you're wondering, like, what do I do? Like, you see something like that, what do I do next? Because all of that was my work. I actually rough it out. So I fairly know what I was trying to do, because this wasn't your rough animation. So what I'm doing is I'm explaining what actually needs to happen in each one of these key drawings. So that's fine, you can follow along. But if you're gonna do your own rough later on, make sure whatever information, if you intend it to be a stretch and you understand it's stretch, you want it to not touch the ground, so make sure that you are actually producing something like that in your blocking. Yeah, and here I say squash and squash even more, so that was the intention. Like at the start here, remember I said this should look like a normal ball, because I know I want it that way, and that's why here I don't change the look, even though it's not really the same with the rough, because you know, who can actually draw a perfect circle just like that, right? I know maybe there are people who can do that. I mean, with enough tries, I'm pretty sure I can do it as well. But anyway, alright, F6 here, the next drawing, I'll just use the shortcut Ctrl Shift Z, I believe, right? We're gonna push it up, we're gonna stretch it, alternate, hold shift, let go of alternate. Okay, I think that should be good. Let's see it. Okay, you gotta do this a lot, yeah? You gotta always look at your drawings back and forth. Here it goes back to normal, hold on, F6, so you create that drawing, Ctrl Shift Z, and bring it about there. Alright, maybe a bit more. Alright, and here we're gonna stretch it again. Okay, I can actually use this drawing. Right mouse button, copy that, paste it in here. Alright, so alright, let's see. It shoots up, goes that high, it's coming down. So let's just make it a bit closer to this drawing, yeah? So instead of coming down very quickly, we'll just make it closer to that drawing. So it eases out, it slowly starts to stretch. And then finally we're gonna have a squash, and that becomes normal. Okay, cool. So we're gonna F6 there. Quite lazy, so I'm gonna just copy that drawing. Although we don't copy it per se, so I'll just paste that in. But we don't want a super squash as well, we'll just lessen it a bit. Alright, maybe that should seem okay. Alright, yes, and finally it goes back to normal shape. So from a squash, it's going to Ctrl Shift Z and come back to normal state. And if you want, you can actually use that. So copy, that goes here. It's basically more or less the same. Alright, let's switch off the rough and let's see what we have so far. Alright, some parts are working, some parts are not. So I'm gonna end the video now. That will be the first part. So we have our blocking already done, and I'm gonna continue in the next video where we look closely at the animation, at the blocking, and see how we can improve from the rough. See you there.